What's up, guys? It's Mike from Working Class Nerds, bringing you another Commander video. This is not going to be a full deck tech, but we do have a deck tech coming up in the future for Tuvasa the Sunlit. What I want to do in this video is rather give you guys some different ways to build around this Commander, and I'm going to show you some cards to include with those suggestions. 21 Commander damage is all it takes to knock someone out of a game. That is the idea behind Voltron. It is a very straightforward but no less effective Commander strategy. The idea is to get our Commander up to a very high power and find ways to swing in or dodge around our opponent's creatures to deal 21 accumulated damage to our opponents and win the game. Cloak of Mists, Aqueous Form, and Aether Tunnel. Simply put, they are all going to give our Commander unblockable. Aqueous Form is going to give us the ability to scry when we attack, and then Aether Tunnel gives us the additional +1/+0, but none of those are really that important. The unblockable is really the focus here. Tuvasa is going to get the +1/+1 just from having these on the battlefield, so that is nice. Plus the unblockable means she's going to get pumped up. She'll be able to start swinging for Commander damage no matter how many creatures or how big of a defense our opponents have. One with the Wind, Arcane Flight in favor of the Overbeing. Not as good as just straight up unblockable. However, if decks really have no answer to deal with flyers early on and really don't have any flying creatures, this is a good way to get around their blockers and start nailing them with that Commander damage, which is the entire point of a Voltron strategy. All That Glitters, Alpha Authority, Canopy Cover, Blessing of the Nephilim, and Wordmail. Just some pretty good cards I've come across. All That Glitters is going to pump up your Commander +1/+1 for each enchantment that you have, which is basically the Commander's passive ability doubled. Alpha Authority is going to give us that hexproof and make it so we can only be blocked by one creature. Canopy Cover basically grants flying without actually saying flying and gives us hexproof. Blessing of the Nephilim, +1/+1 for each of its colors, but we have a 3-color Commander, so +3/+3 for 1 white mana is pretty nice. And Wordmail, kind of a silly card, but +1/+1 for each of the words in the card's name. So Tuvasa the Sunlit, that's 3. That's another +3/+3 for a single white mana. So some actually pretty good cards. Some I might be considering in my future build for Tuvasa. Relatively low as far as cost. I think all of these come in well under 50 cents as well, and have pretty good abilities for protection, for pumping up our Commander, and I think would be a really good fit in a Voltron style build. Another strategy worth looking at, given our Commander's particular color identity, is Stax. This relies on playing lots of cards that slow down and potentially throw off our competitors' strategies. This includes playing cards that require lands to enter the battlefield tapped, creatures our opponents control entering the battlefield tapped, denying certain activations of artifacts our opponents control. Basically, we want to throw off our opponents and then capitalize while they're sort of in disarray. These first two are pretty well known, Authority of Consuls and Blind Obedience. Creatures are going to enter the battlefield tapped. Authority of Consuls is going to give us a life for each one. Blind Obedience is going to make artifacts enter tapped as well. Chill is one that I have actually just recently come across. Red spells cost 2 more to play. Really only effective if you're playing against an opponent that has red cards, but the fact that everything they play costs 2 more can really slow down red aggro decks. So I feel like it's a decent 2-drop enchantment, not to mention it's going to pump up our Commander. We can draw a card off of it potentially, so not too terrible for a Stax build. Loxodon Gatekeeper and Frozen Aether. Artifacts, creatures, and lands your opponents control come into play tapped. One's a creature, one's an enchantment, but both have pretty good abilities here. Kismet for 4. All of target players' creatures, lands, and artifacts come into play tapped. So not quite as good as the first two, as it doesn't target all of our opponents. However, a decent tool to be used with bargaining and politicking with players to either keep them from getting this enchantment cast on them, or perhaps working with the team to take out a player seems to be pretty close to comboing off or in a pretty strong board state. And Root Maze for 1 green, all artifacts and lands come into play tapped. This is going to negatively affect us. However, with plenty of enchantments that allow us to tap lands for multiple mana, we will be in a much better state than other players who are not prepared for something like this. And this last strategy we're going to go over is a fairly new one for me as well. It is called Pillow Fort. My understanding is you build up a massive defense, This pretty much dissuades any opponent from attacking you, or you make it so difficult that it's just not worth it. And you wait until the smoke clears, everyone has spent their resources destroying each other, and you sneak in for the win. Building our pillow fort, we have Propaganda, Sphere of Safety, Ghostly Prison, and Karmic Justice. The first three are going to make our opponents have to pay for each attacking creature they control that is coming after us. And Karmic Guide, whenever they play a spell or an ability that destroys a non-creature permanent we control, we can destroy a permanent they control. So it will really dissuade them from trying to blow up our enchantments that we are using to build the pillow fort, because if they do, we can just blow up one of their permanents. So this is a great way to start pumping up the defenses, making it way more difficult to swing in for any kind of damage against us. Dense Foliage, Aegis of the Gods, Raking Canopy, and Reclamation. You could argue the Dense Foliage and Reclamation belong in more of a Stax style build, which I wouldn't entirely disagree. Dense Foliage will make it so no creatures can be the target of spells, so instants and sorceries that either help or hurt won't really be able to get used here. Reclamation, any commander that has black in its identity and relies on a lot of creatures will really suffer from this one. Aegis of the Gods, you have hexproof, so spells and abilities your opponents control will not be able to target you. And Raking Canopy, whenever a creature with flying attacks you, Raking Canopy deals 4 damage to it. This will pretty much shut down 1/1 spirits, 2/2 drakes, any sort of small flyers that opponents are relying on from coming after you. And just like that, we have reached the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Let us know what sort of content you would like to see in the future. We have gotten some really good feedback, and we are making some changes for our future videos. We're going to be bringing you more deck techs. We're going to be bringing you some Commander versus videos, so we would just like to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for supporting.